Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the Apple Watch Ultra 2 in black titanium has been out for a little while now, and many people have been asking me if they should pick one up, how it's holding up as far as the overall coating, and what its durability is like, and what it's like to use every single day. So I thought we'd go over the good and the bad after 1 month or so of usage. Now my daily use of this varies, but typically I'll use it as a watch for notifications and then have a couple different things here on the outside. I'll change the watch face from time to time, but basically on this watch face, the one for the Ultra itself, the Modular Ultra, I'll typically have my weather, my messages, a little bit of wind direction here, and then also, of course, your time, music, your heart rate, and then activity. So I don't really use it for a ton other than maybe if I want to take a walk or something like that. I'll use it with outdoor walk. Time to walk is really nice, listening to some different things there. Just as you walk along, it's really nice if you use your AirPods, and especially if they have transparency mode or the AirPods 3 where you can hear the outside sort of environment. That going along with it makes it sound like they're walking right along with you. So for those sort of things with daily use, that's the first great thing. The second great thing is performance. This is super fast, and while it's not necessarily the latest of everything, it is very fast when you go into typical applications, whether that's something such as the App Store. It may take a moment to load as far as the overall Wi-Fi connection, and maybe that would be a little bit of a downside. You'll see here it's taking a little while with cellular and more, and sometimes it doesn't load. But I do run betas on this, so I don't really count this against it, as when I want to go into things such as music, it's right away. So sometimes there's some odd apps here, and that's more along the lines of the iOS update, but you'll see activity today. I haven't gone for a walk. Anything that I haven't loaded just opens up pretty quickly. I'm not sure why the App Store is taking a while, maybe because I didn't have this splash screen that I continued through with the latest beta update, but in general, it's a decent experience. It's super fast. Anything you want to do is just nice and quick in general. Another positive thing about the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is it looks great with all of these bands, whether it's Nomad's bands, Apple's titanium band, they keep releasing them, and it still works with all of the same bands that you may already have. If you have a band that you really like, whether that's one of the woven nylon ones or something else, they'll just all work with it as long as you have the larger size. Otherwise, you'd have to get different ones if you're coming from a smaller watch, but you've got lots of different choices for different bands or whatever works best for you. If you prefer leather or you prefer maybe a rubberized texture, something that might be better underwater. They have a lot of different options. And again, you don't have to get them from Apple. You can get them from third parties. You can get them fairly inexpensively, or you can get Apple's bands as well. Lots of great designs to sort of match your taste. And I'm glad they didn't change that this year. And the next thing is watchOS 11. And while it's not a gigantic update compared to previous years where we had major redesigns, this one has some nice updates with things such as the Vitals application. You have Tides there, Vitals, and other things that can help you better monitor your health if you're wearing it to sleep, things like that. So in general, I think watchOS 11 is a nice addition, but it hasn't been without its problems. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And when it comes to battery life, well, it's hard to beat the Apple Watch Ultra when it comes to a smartwatch. The battery is pretty incredible. For me, it gets through a couple days typically, unless it's an issue with the OS, and seems to get through there without a problem. For example, the latest OS, if you were using maybe the betas, with the previous beta, it actually dropped the battery health down to 95%, but then the third beta came out and it fixed that problem. So these typically last pretty well for an entire year. So if you go to battery health, they last without a problem. Typically, I'm at 100% capacity. And if we take a look at the Apple Watch Ultra from last year, this is the one I used for an entire year. And if we go to settings, then we'll go back here down to battery again. And within battery on this one, battery health, I'm still at 100%. They typically last a year, at least for me, at 100%. So they typically hold out a little bit better than the iPhones seem to. I'm not sure why. Maybe just they don't use as much power or they don't cycle the battery as much. But either way, it seems to be holding up quite well as far as the battery, and I can easily get through 2 days. Sometimes the OS causes a problem and drains battery faster, but Apple has seemingly fixed that with the latest updates. Now, of course, the last positive thing here is the design. The overall design is really great. I think it's a really sort of industrial design. I didn't love it first, but then adding this black texture on it really is pretty great. So overall, I think it's a really great design. It looks good. Initially, it was a little bit striking compared to the previous design, but it is nice to get an update. Of course, you could opt for the Series 10 as well, that's a little bit thinner, but they're very familiar, but of course more durable. Now this leads me to the overall durability. This is actually good and bad. Initially, this was very strong. I even hit it in concrete on a sidewalk. I was taking some photos for a comparison, but now it seems like it's wearing a little bit worse than we would have expected. This supposedly was originally harder than the original titanium coating. However, the natural titanium typically is just natural titanium, it seems, and holds up much better. So to take a closer look, if we go right in at the top here, you can see there's a couple nicks and scratches on it. What caused this, I'm not sure. Possibly door jams at different locations. You'll see I even have it on this band, so it is bound to come off of different finishes. And this is a Nomad titanium band. I'll link in the description. But in general, it's held up okay, kind of as I expected, but not perfect. You'll see some wear here around this edge. Now, to be fair, in regular use, you don't really see this much because you're looking at the watch straight on. I do see the nick here at the top, and you can see this here around the corner or the edge, and it definitely has worn off some. So what caused it specifically, I don't know, but this is a ruggedized watch, and I typically like to just use it and not worry about it. I do have what appears to be some sort of scratch here on the side, and I can't wipe all of these off, although let me try with a little rag here, or maybe the nano texture cloth here that's meant to clean the display. You'll see some of it wipes off, some of it doesn't, so it's not perfect. I personally don't mind this, but it definitely does not hold up as well as I had thought originally. You have nicks around it, and I just wear it and I don't really pay much attention to it. And then occasionally I'll get some scratches on it. Now the display itself does not have any scratches on it whatsoever. The sapphire displays have never given me an issue, and they hold up extremely well. But this can be a negative as far as the overall body of the watch and holding up over time. Just like you can get the same sort of nicks and scratches on the titanium iPhone, you can get the same thing on the Apple Watch Ultra 2 in black. So this overall coating seems to hold up okay, but it's not perfect. I personally would not put a case on it just because I like the overall size. It's big enough as it is, and I wouldn't put something around it to protect it. I would just get the natural version if I was worried about nicks and scratches on it. It's meant to be an outdoor sort of durability or use case watch where you might bump it into some rocks, or maybe you're doing some outdoor activity with it or diving with it. It's bound to get dinged up a little bit. If you care about that, again, I would go with the natural titanium. Now, the next thing is Apple Watch Ultra 3 will probably redesign this in some way. It doesn't need that big of a redesign, but it is getting a little bit old as far as what we've had. We had it for 3 years now with basically just one new color. So that's something that's a little bit of a negative. And another thing that's a negative is we still don't have an activated oxygen sensor. Now, if you have an Apple Watch Ultra 2 and you bought it early on when they first launched, in the United States, you'll have this feature. Apple had to disable this due to a lawsuit that they lost at the time, and they're still trying to figure that out or win that. But currently, if you bought one of the black titanium watches or anything after about January of this past year, 2024, you would have that disabled. So around that time, it was disabled on all newly sold Apple Watches. Anything that already was sold with that activated will not lose that activation. Around the world, this isn't an issue. This is mostly just in the United States. Another thing that is a little bit of a negative is we have a really great display on the Ultra 2, but it's not as great as far as the off-axis viewing compared to the Series 10. So if we turn on both displays, you'll see off-axis, the Series 10 is much better that way. So it's just something they made as far as a change to the overall display, where in general, it just looks a lot better when it's off axis. So that's something I would like to see come to the Ultra that wasn't available this year. Probably will happen with the Ultra 3 next year, giving you another reason to upgrade. So if you're wondering if you should upgrade to the black titanium version of the Ultra 2, if you have the regular natural titanium Ultra 2 and you haven't upgraded already, I probably would hold off, especially if you care about the overall scratching or durability of the overall finish. That's something that could be concerning for some, and if it is, hold off and wait for next year's model and see what they do, whether it's a redesign or something else. However, if you already have maybe an Apple Watch that's not an Ultra, this is definitely worth trying. It is a little bit large, of course, and that may be another negative for some people, but in general, for me, depending on your overall size of your hands and wrists, this actually looks really good and sort of fits properly on my wrist due to the size of my wrists and hands. It blends in, it's not too large. In fact, I could have it a little bit bigger even, and I think it would look just fine. So I think it's great overall, but it does have a few negatives, and maybe you shouldn't upgrade if you really want the latest things, and you may want to see if Apple turns on that O2 sensor in the United States. So if you're wondering which one you should buy, it really depends if you want a durability watch with great battery, or maybe you want something that's really great to view from angles, and both are great watches, but it depends if you want more of an rugged or a dress watch or whatever works best for your style. It's great that you can change it up with the bands like I mentioned before. And one other thing with the durability here is if we take the bands out, you'll see it's held up pretty well, sliding bands in and out, but there is a little bit of a surface scratch here from just moving the titanium bands in and out. So the surface definitely wears out over time, and it's not the most durable finish. It's great, but it's not as durable as the natural titanium, at least in my experience. So I'd love to hear from you as far as if you picked up an Ultra 2 in black and how it's holding up for you, or if maybe you'll hold off, go for the natural titanium or something else. Let me know your experience in the comments below, and of course I'll link a new wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.